Welcome to Nightlight. Step away from the mainstream and gather around as we enlighten the world and our realities and travel this cosmic journey we call life. Join us as we share with you and provide that beacon that can guide us all to a better way. Explore with us as we examine a metaphysical montage of spiritual insights, covering everything from the mundane to the magical, UFOs to unicorns, and everything in between. This is a time of awakening, of sharing and evolving, of spreading our wings and soaring on the cosmic breath of creation. Come and join with other light-minded spirits as we weave our lights together to seek understanding, enlightenment, and, with a little luck, some wisdom. This is Nightlight, a reminder that you are never alone.
Good afternoon or evening or morning. I guess it depends on where you are with the world or in the world. Want to welcome you. This is an unusual topic today, and I guess I threw people with it strangely, but I didn't expect to. Akashic records are something that all of us talk about. And sort of flip around. It's one of those terms that we flip out there, but sometimes we don't really totally, thoroughly understand what it is we're flipping out. And so I really wanted to kind of, give everybody a good foundation for spirituality and everything that we're going to be talking on in the weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks yet to come. And for just for those who are listening in archive or those who are listening and not here, to make it easier for all of you, I have put a link on my website for the Spiritual Circle Development Circle, and on that link are all of the materials that I have sent out to you so far. So each week I will put the materials for the week up on the website in case you can't download the material that I send you. It's going to be there as well, so that you just need to go to my website and check it out there. So it'll be easier for people to find. Apparently, my word processors and everybody else's word processors are not synchronistically connected, or they aren't labeled right, or I'm saving documents in a strange or weird way. I'm not really sure exactly what it is, but I do know that there has been difficulty and trouble, and this is my way of putting it out there. Also, if you have friends that are interested, refer them to the website. There's information there on how to sign up for the circles if they want to. And I just figured it would be a better clearinghouse place. So this way it's there. You can look at the material, you can download it, you can do whatever you like with it. Just don't start a fire. Anyhow, Akasha. Akasha is a Sanskrit word, and it means sky or space or ether. And the Akasha is where the records are that correspond to our past and our present. And it's so many people think about it as a place where there's a book hidden and that you can leaf through the book and you can read about all your past lives and stuff like that. Yes, you can do that, but the Akashic records are more of a spirit journey record than they are a personal lifetime type record. So it's a little hard for a lot of people to understand the fact that there are Akashic records, absolutely. And they have been there for billions and billions of years. And they are the record of every living organism in the universe. So that it is a recording of thoughts, of words, of deeds, of lessons and of challenges, of turmoils and of triumphs. but it's on a spirit level that this record is kept. Does it talk about if you cheated someone, you're going to get it back or something like that? Not exactly, but yes. It has to do with the intent of the action. It has to do with the spirit within you and how that was involved in the process. You see, it is a record of the experiences of each lifetime, but in a more spiritually oriented way, so that as you or I, it's not a diary. I guess that's the better way to put it. It's not a diary. It's not you did this and so did this to you. It's not like that. It's like our challenges and our lessons are there, and how we dealt with them and how we applied ourselves to them are there. And when you stop and think about the fact that our spirits are millions of years old, most probably, so it's got to be a lot of material. And what it is doing, it is archiving our soul's growth process through generation after generation after generation after generation. It probably, if you wanted to, and if you had a lot of time, you could probably go back to the very, very beginning, and you could see how your soul, your spirit, actually came into consciousness to be independent and to journey the universe and to grow and to stretch and to evolve. But that said, you'd probably see lifetimes where you weren't humanoid. You'd see lifetimes where you were etheric, where you were, where you breathed atmospheres that weren't even had relation or relative to what we have here on the earth plane. It could and would be totally, totally confusing to you, spiritually speaking. So that's why, my heavens, that's why we don't have really access to them. Now, the ones that are probably more relevant to us are those that have happened here on the earth plane, and those are there, and there is access to them, and you can absolutely relate to them, and there is we are able to. That's the word I look. We can gather them in, we can use them for our own information, and we can relate to them that way. So Akashic records are places where we go to see not the day-to-day stuff, but we go to see the spiritual journey that we're on, and it's the journey of the spirit within us, not of the personality wherein we dwell. And that's where a lot of people have difficulty in separating and understanding the whole process. It is the spirit journey. It is not the independent journey of your personality through time. So that what you do to another or what another does to you is not as relevant to your spirit's development as is how the spirit has grown from the experiences that it has gone through each lifetime. So that we have this difference of understanding. And I've talked to a lot of people, and there is really a confusion over what do the Akashic records hold, and does it tell about how nasty my husband was, or how tumultuous this lifetime has been for me? But that's a personal experience. That's not your soul. Your soul has been observing that and has been certainly working through your consciousness, but it's the journey of the spirit. It's not the personality, and it's a hard thing to grasp when we're talking about it, because frankly, on a consciousness level, all we really have at our disposal are our experiences of this lifetime, are the conscious things, are the physical things, are the ego and the personality and the day-to-day things that we go through. Now, the universal laws apply to all of those things. They are constantly working with us throughout each lifetime, but it is the journey is for the spirit. It's not for it. While our ego and everything are in place, and that we experience this lifetime very personally, obviously. At the end of our days, when we move on to other dimensions and other lifetimes, our personality does not go with us. Barbara DeLong, is here for this lifetime. She's gonna make her mark for sure. But my personality stays with this lifetime. And when I pass away, it's going to be an old coat, and I'll replace it with a new coat. And those aspects that are refined, those aspects that have grown, those aspects that have evolved with wisdom and stuff like that, that absolutely goes with you. But the character and the personality is of this lifetime alone. So pay attention, because you want to make sure that you leave a legacy of laughter and joy to be remembered by those who come after you, because you don't take that with you. You take the wisdom, you take the joy and the laughter and the light. Absolutely, you take those things. And when you get to the other side, you still have aspects of this lifetime that other people identify with. And when you visit, you use those aspects to be identifying criteria when you do visit people here on the earth plane. But the Akashic record is the journey of the soul. And that's the higher consciousness. And certainly our conscious mind is a part of that higher consciousness. And it gets absorbed back in, when we cross over. It's not lost to time or anything like that. It goes along with us. We don't leave a part of ourselves every time we, check out. The totality of the spirit goes as a total spirit. But that part that is the consciousness then is absorbed into the higher consciousness and becomes a part of the record it takes with it to view and to take out the cool stuff and absorb it into its totality, and the other stuff is kind of it's discarded because it's no longer usable. It doesn't apply to the journey that the soul is on. So I hope that clears it up. I keep going back to it because I keep having people say, I don't understand this, and I can understand. It's a lot to wrap yourself around, and I know a lot of us don't deal with the aspect of the Akashic records on a regular basis. But it is a record that is important to have, and people throughout time have accessed it. Ancient cultures have accessed it: the Indians, the Moors, the Tibetans, people in the Himalayas, the Persians, the Greeks, the Chinese, the Hebrews, the Christians, the Druids, and the Mayans. They all had people within their cultures that they would call it the book, and the Bible calls it the book. And everyone is capable of tuning in to their own Akashic records. Now, I do understand. I was made to understand last night when talking to somebody that there are theories and philosophies out there that you can never read your own Akashic records, but you can read others. And in my belief system, you can read yours, and it's more important that you read yours than you read other people's, because it's your journey. It's the spirit within you's journey, and it has access to those records totally. It has access to all the Akashic records. They're not secret. They are there for anyone to tune into, and everyone. It's a journey. It's a process. It's the Akashic. It means ether. It's everywhere, and it's everyone. So we all are a part of it, and we all have access to it. Now, whether or not you tap into it is totally up to you. And again, I come back to that. It's all up to you. You have the capability. You have the ability to do it. Now, there are lots of different ways of connecting to Akashic records. You can do it through meditation. You can do it through prayer. There are some cultures that suggest you use drugs. I don't advise that. because that does warp everything, perception and understanding. So, I would keep it clean. But there are many cultures that, especially there are some Native Americans that use peyote, and they say that they make a consciousness jump at that point in time. Now, in my philosophy and in my understanding, and again, it's just my philosophy, that when you have the maturity of spirit to access the records, you can access them. Someone told me last night that they had made the attempt to get into their Akashic records, and someone turned them back. And I said, well, who was that? And she said, oh no, that was the keeper of the records. And I said, there is no keeper of the records. That was probably your higher consciousness saying it wasn't time, you weren't ready for it. And she said, no, it was a man, and I'm a female. And I said, you stopped yourself because it wasn't time. That's all it was. And we need to understand that our higher consciousness will manifest in every way possible to get points across to us at all points in time. And it is my firm belief that people who have spirit guides that talk to them are talking to their higher consciousness. They're not talking to a spirit who has come, taken time off of whatever it is they do. It's your higher consciousness. And so for some reason, a part of her did not feel she was ready, a wiser part probably. And it's sort of like you can do it through through meditation, you can do it through visualization. You can do every one of us will have our own independent way of tapping into our higher consciousness, who has total access to all the Akashic records out there. Not only those of humans, but every living organism out there. So it's a big library, and it's I know that there are stories about the Hall of Records being under the Great Pyramid or under the left paw of the Sphinx, or any numbers of places. The Akashic records exist on the Akashic or realm, you want to call it. I don't know what else I would call it. It is another dimension. So that and anyone is capable of traveling to that dimension. It's a matter of knowing you can do it, believing you can do it, and allowing it to happen. And what happens with a lot of us is we understand the philosophy, but making it work for us, or accepting it, or believing it is very, very difficult. When you know something, when you believe it, your spirit naturally embraces it. And when that happens, then all doors open to you. Nothing is locked. If you are prevented from going anywhere, it's because you feel on a higher consciousness level that you are not ready to be there. You don't have and I say maturity of spirit. That has nothing to do with time served here on the planet. It's just a matter of your consciousness isn't ready to try to absorb the information that is there. That's all there is. Divine higher realms. Let's not call them divine higher realms. Let's just call them other dimensions. When people pass over, they go to another dimension. The Akashic records are another dimension. They are, and you can call it a realm, a level of consciousness. You can call it whatever you like. There are different names for all of these things, and every person who has ever written a book has named it themselves, has called it themselves, and so it's a matter of what is right for you. And if you want to go with Blavatsky's theory, go with it. If you want to go with Alice Bailey, go with it. If you want to go with Edgar Cayce, go with it. Each and every one of the experts out there, if you will, has their own way of doing these things, of touching into these things. Sometimes I think of us as a consciousness of being a radio transmitter. And we, depending on which channel we tune to, is the level of insight and wisdom that we gather. So it's however you want to perceive it, whatever imagery works for you. For heaven's sakes, grab onto it and hold onto it and use it. There is no right, there is no wrong. It's your way. And my way wouldn't be right for you guys. Your ways wouldn't be right for me. But the reality is, it is another level, another dimension, another aspect of consciousness. And however you want to perceive it is the way it is for you. I know that throughout time, there have been tons and tons of people that have accessed, or say they have accessed, the Akashic records, and that's Charles Webster Ledbetter, and of course you know his books. They're fabulous, especially the stuff on chakras. Alice Bailey, William Lilly, Manly P. Hall, who's an amazing man. Rudolf Steiner, Edgar Cayce, and Edgar Cayce is probably the one that has the most material out there on the Akasha. But again, I caution all of us, myself included, that when you are tapping into these kinds of records, when you are channeling information from another level of consciousness or another dimension, it has to come through your personality and your ego, so it is tinged by that. So that no matter who has, quote unquote, channeled the material, an aspect of them and their philosophy comes along with the material that you get. And it is, channel material is always wonderful, it's always beautiful, and it's always an aspect of philosophy, and gives us another way of understanding and perceiving our reality. But anything that I channel will be shaded with my perception and my philosophy. It happens. It's kind of like a channel is an object through which something travels, and it is almost impossible to not pick up a little bit along the channel as you come through it. If you go through a tunnel, I'm thinking of the tunnels that go under the rivers and stuff. If you go through one of those tunnels, you pick up whatever is left over from the cars that have come before. You pick up dust and dirt. Your car, the vehicle that you are traveling in picks up debris. And so if you are bringing information or wisdom through yourself, it will pick up debris of your personality and your philosophy as it comes through. I'm not sure that is as clean I probably could figure out a better visualization given a moment or two or a week or two. But basically, any channeled material has debris from the person that channeled it. Absolutely. And sometimes that doesn't hurt, sometimes it amplifies, and sometimes it, makes people shake their heads and say, gee, I wonder where that particular aspect came from. But anyhow, the Akashic records are something that exists in the ether, and I love the word ether because it's where we came from. It's where we were created from. We were essentially at first an etheric body, which means shapeless, formless, smellless, touch. We were invisible, but we were all part of this etheric oneness. And at some point, that etheric oneness sent off clusters of itself. And my theory is it had grown as big as it possibly could, and in order to continue growing, it fragmented, and all of the fragments became little pieces again, so that they could begin to grow again, and at some point in time, way millions of years in the future, do the same process, like getting to a point where we had gathered so much that we had to disperse in order to continue growing. I think each of us are one of those seeds, growing towards a time when that which is our soul, our spirit, our oneness, will have to fragment in order to continue to grow and manifest within whatever realities there are available. So So I love the word ether. It's where we came from. It's where we came from. It's that point of creation. It's that point of consciousness that made us curious searchers throughout time and dimension. Ooh, that's pretty. So that's kind of where the Akashic records are, and I think the greatest material of all the material I gave you, the greatest preponderance of it is with the Hindu and the Buddhist religions, because they seem to have done the most with it. I love this phrase here. Reality is a consciousness hologram. The Akashic records refer to the matrix of consciousness programs that create our reality within that hologram. And one could look upon it as a library of light wherein we can gain access for all information. It is everywhere and it is nowhere, and it is magical in many ways, shapes, and forms. So it's something that we all have. We all have access to it. Ledbetter's book on clairvoyance is really quite amazing. So you might want to browse through that if you ever get a chance. It's really kind of cool stuff. It's fascinating in that when I have said, many times to everybody, the answer is always in yourself, and access to the Akashic records is within ourself. And it's a matter of crossing that bridge from consciousness to higher consciousness and reaching from that point in ourselves into the all that is out there, and that's where we get the information. And if you're curious about your Akashic records, you're fully capable of going to them and tapping into them and gaining wisdom from them. And it's really important on some levels, depending on where you are in your own spiritual evolution. Why would you go back and check out where you've been? It does help you understand where your soul has been and what aspects it has worked on. It's an opportunity to let's see. All of the information gives us a comprehensive overview of our soul purpose for this lifetime. And that's invaluable because we are here to express our divinity into our human experience. And the information contained in the Akashic records about the nature of our soul helps us tune in to the divinity, to that higher consciousness, to that spirit within ourselves. And so, the purpose of the soul is to help to guide, and it helps to guide in many ways. And it isn't just sitting there waiting for us to knock on the door. It's sitting there, and it does try to touch into us. Try to touch into our reality through us, through a couple of different channels that all of us have, and that all of us have that are open. One of those channels is our intuition, because it does flow into the intuitive side of us. It does give us information and insight and guidance through our intuition. It's a matter, do we trust it or not? And that's one of those biggies. So many of us have the intuition, utilize it, and then forget to utilize it. And every now and then it nudges us, and every now and then, we ignore it because, we just think we know more than we do. And every now and then our gut will, kind of nudge us, and we'll get that feeling in our solar plexus. And it's usually not hunger. It's usually the intuition saying, pay attention. You may want to reconsider this. You may want to look in another direction. Now, see, the higher consciousness will never tell us what to do. It will urge us to reconsider, but it will never stop. I won't say never, because there are times that it does intercede, and it does make a major change in our life pathway if we are going the wrong direction. But that's extreme. That's extreme. It does happen, but it is extreme. But more often than not, it will tap into us through our intuition. It will give us those butterflies in our stomach, like something feels not right here. And when something feels not right, pay attention to that and act on it. I mean, I very recently, within the last week, had one of those moments, and gratefully and happily, it was like, no, this isn't right. This doesn't feel right, and I stopped what I was doing, and I was right in stopping because I was doing something that was I was participating in something that was a scam, and I didn't realize it. And when I realized it, I backed out and I stopped. But it was those butterflies in my stomach, that feeling of, something's wrong here. I don't know what it is, but something's wrong. So, let's stop, back off, and take another look at it. We all get those occurrences many times during the day, probably, and for most of us, we kind of ignore them. When we pay attention to them, we save ourselves great trauma. Trust me. And it's something that we want to sort of pay attention to. The other place that higher consciousness is able to sort of influence our realities is through dreams, and our dreams really are. When we're dreaming, when we're asleep, our ego is really at rest. It's kind of in sleep mode, and it doesn't have the same impact upon what happens in that screen that is constantly in motion within our head. It's during those times that our higher consciousness gives us messages of all sorts. Usually it's imagery. Usually we have to interpret that imagery because very frankly, it doesn't just send you a telegram. That would be so much easier. Oh, God, would that be great? But it doesn't do that. It makes you work. It makes you interpret the images. It makes you really kind of work to gather the wisdom that you're supposed to be using and applying at this point in time in life. Oftentimes, it'll be very subtle, but it's there. And those people who keep dream journals usually get a tremendous amount of information from them. The interesting thing about dreams is that everybody has a different, how do I put this? When you have dreams and you journal them down, there is a set amount of time or space wherein that dream in some way manifests within your reality. And for some, it's like 2 days or 2 weeks or 2 months or 7.5 days or something like that. And sometimes it's months, but it's usually within a 6-month time frame. It's not usually more than that, but that's just rule of thumb, and thumbs have all different sizes and stuff. But you'll find that if you journal your dream down and then take a look at it and try to sort of apply it to your reality, and then just kind of put it aside. And as more dreams come, sometime in the very near future, one of the dreams will suddenly click, and it's like, oh, that's what that meant. Okay, I can relate to that. Then you have your time frame down. Then it's 6 days or 6 weeks or whatever it is. Then you can go back. You can further interpret the dream and the imagery and understand what it means. And from then on, it's the same amount of time. It's always consistent. It's a wonderful source of prophecy for you within your own life. And it does work, and it is amazing. And it's one of those things. It works. It's absolute, and it's always accurate. So, because of that, we don't use it. It boggles my mind when we have things in our life that work amazingly well, and we understand the operation of it. It's like the law of attraction and all that applies to it. We understand how to make it work. Many of us choose to ignore it and not actually apply it as often as we could, even though we know that it absolutely works. So this is another one of those things. Dreams are prophecy. Dreams are reality waiting to happen, but they're imagery. They have to be interpreted, and you have to do the interpretation. You can buy as many books on interpretation as you like, but every single one of those books is absolutely 100% accurate for the person that wrote it, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's accurate for you. You have to basically write your own book, and that means you have to work. And this process, this spiritual process, is work. it's working on yourself. It's working on how you live your life, how you perceive your life. It's working on how you apply yourself to reality. But it's so cool, and it works so well, and it's so exciting, and it gives you such a greater understanding of this reality and other dimensions and other realities as well. So back to the Akashic Record. When we access the Akashic Record, we understand that our present, our past and our present are current. They're written, but your future has not been written. And once you understand, the journey that your soul is on, the journey that your spirit is on, you can make wiser choices because of where your spirit has been and what has been through. We are, powerful creators of our own life, and it's by our own choice. So that the Akashic Records may present you possibilities and probabilities, but the future has not happened. You have absolute, as far as your own life goes, you have absolute control over what happens. You have the choices, and you make them, and then you live them, and once you've lived them, they become the present, and you have other choices that you're going to make. But you have to understand that you are the one. You are creating this lifetime. Your personality, your ego, your character has great responsibility, and it constantly is getting information from the higher consciousness, but you still make those choices in your your physical consciousness, so that we can't grumble about difficulty because we in some way have created it. We can't grumble about challenges that come our way because we asked for the challenges. So that it's how you deal with those things that make your future your present to create yet another reality. And it's not only your perception but how you approach things, and it's how you do things that determines what comes your way. And the Akashic Records are simply recording those choices, are recording those situations, are keeping a record for the spirit, so that when the spirit leaves this dimension and goes to another, it can go over all of these situations and the choices that we made and utilize that information that was gathered, apply it to itself to grow in awareness and understanding, and it takes time for it on the other side to assimilate all of that, to embrace it, to sort of to digest it, I guess, and apply it to the concepts within itself, so that at some time, in the future it will choose to take on another life form to come down and to work on other aspects. So it's important that we understand also we can use the Akashic Records as a tool for researching unwise choices that we've made. I don't want to say negative because, every choice is a good choice. It just is how we're going to learn. But we can see where the spirit has done things or has been through experiences that had that kind of, a negative, for want of a better word, result. And we can sort of take a look at those, and we can send healing back, and we can, in many ways, do a clearing so that we don't have to experience those lessons yet again. So it's really important to understand that clearing our past and healing our past through love and light is something that we can do if we are accessing the Akashic Records. So it's a process that is a really cool thing to do, but in other ways we can clear blockages and restrictions that are preventing us from going towards a destiny that is most appropriate for us. So there's a great deal of material there to be gathered, to be gone through and gone over and assimilated, and it's an exciting process. Now, I think I spoke earlier of that that Edgar Casey is one of those people that, has, Blavatsky, Madame Blavatsky, the crazy lady. She was crazy, but she was a heck of a writer, and she was very spiritualist. And I guess maybe being crazy is it helps in this field sometimes. Blavatsky actually brought the Akashic records. She's the one that kind of coined the phrase, and but Rudolf Steiner has dealt with the information on the spiritual world and the Akashic records and how to access them. But Edgar Casey is the one that has been the most famous. He's the sleeping prophet, and he was a very humble man. He was a cool guy, and he was able to access those records in what was a trance state, but you don't have to trance. But that's how he did it. That worked for him. He laid down, he folded his hands, and he went into what they called a trance state. I guess it was, and he would search for, if you got I knew only one person that got a record, a life reading from Edgar Casey, and that was the minister that I studied with in the spiritual development class that I sat in for 7 years. And he said he had to be in a certain place. It didn't matter where. It could be his living room or his bedroom or a place of his choice, and that he had to be sitting quietly at a certain time while Casey was tuning into him. And Casey would go into the trance, and he would go through his visualization, and then he would say, I have the body, and then he would go into reading the records for that particular body, and he did this through creative visualization when he was going into his trance. He said, how did he put it? He said, I see myself as a tiny dot out of my physical body, which lies inert before me. I find myself oppressed by darkness, and there is a feeling of loneliness, and suddenly I am conscious of a white beam of light, and as this tiny dot, I move upward following the light, knowing that I must follow it or be lost. I move along this path of light. I gradually become conscious of various levels upon which there is movement. And he goes through the different levels, and I have to also say that he had a very Christian background, so of course the different levels were different parts of consciousness and things like that. But he finally got to a place where, how does he put it? There's more and more light, and the colors become very beautiful, and there is sound of wonderful music, and the houses are left behind. In ahead there is only a blending of sound and color. Quite suddenly I come upon a hall of records. It is a hall without walls, without ceiling, but I am conscious of seeing an old man who hands me a large book, a record of the individual for whom I seek the information. And again, this is Casey's way of doing it. And this is how he did it. And once he has the book for that person, he reads through it, and he gives the person the information that he feels is most appropriate. And he was asked tons of questions there. I mean, there's a library of books on Edgar Casey, and he was an amazing man. He did burn himself out, however. He was overused, and I think that's something that all of us have to, in some way, sort of pay attention to. I do believe that because he had this gift, that he did more than was physically appropriate for him to do, and he eventually did burn out and pass over. And yet the foundation still lives, and all of his work is there, and they do good work. They train good people. But having a balance in your life is very important. That's one of the universal laws that we did talk about, and having that balance so that you have a lot of things going on in your life, not just spiritual study, because spiritual study is everything. And you can go to baseball games, and you can go to football games. you can garden, you can go out with your friends. Having a balance in your life is very, very important. And whether you're doing research or just having a balance in your life, so that you are not constantly drawing that energy through you. I mean, we aren't meant to be, as physical entities, just a battery for spiritual energy. We're meant to enjoy this experience, and I think something that most people kind of lose perspective on is that this is a human experience, and the spirit has to experience all of it, not just the study of spiritual connection and the oneness and all of that stuff. It has to experience, the ongoing life of the individual, and that means balance, and that means having fun, and that means working hard, and that means celebrating with friends and family, and that means, reaching into the Akashic records and understanding the journey of the soul. But it means a balance, and Edgar Cayce did not have that balance. He was genuinely dedicated to helping people and helping people to live and to heal. I mean, his medical stuff is phenomenal. And let's see. He wrote, "Upon time and space is written the thoughts, the deeds, the activities of an entity as in relationships to its environ, its heredity, influence, or judgment drawn by or according to what the entity's ideal is. Hence, it has been oft called the record of God's book of remembrance." That would be the Akasha. "And each entity, each soul, as the activities of a single day of an entity in the material world, either makes same or good or bad or indifferent, depending upon the entity's application of self towards that which is the ideal manner for the use of the time." And you will always know when you are channeling, and maybe we should do a thing on channeling. You will know when you are actually channeling, because the voice you are speaking in changes, and I don't mean the tonal quality of it, the way the words come out, the way the words are utilized, than the everyday application of your vernacular, of how you talk. I have done channeling in writing especially, and I have found that the manner in which the words flow onto the paper and how they sound when read is very different from how I speak normally. And so there is a difference of, when you are in that place and the higher consciousness is there and giving you information, you know that it's different because there is a different voice speaking, and it's that of your higher consciousness. Cayce absolutely did work with that. Now there are a lot of people that don't believe that the Akasha exists, and there are going to be naysayers. You can't prove it, so it's a matter of you believe it or you don't. But Edgar Cayce certainly was pulling from somewhere, because it was new material for him. He often gave, by the way, medical advice that was phenomenal. Jane Roberts, in all of the Seth books, she also talks of the Akasha. And everybody, again, perceives it differently, so that sometimes it's called the memory of nature, and in some people call it different things in different places. In the Urantia book, it speaks of the Akashic records and angels and all sorts of stuff. Everywhere you look, there is going to be another report of a different way of approaching or applying or interpreting what these records are. But everybody seems to say they're out there, and they all have their own way of teaching you how to tap into them, which I think is phenomenal. And again, there's no wrong way and there's no right way. So it's you can't make a mistake here. And I think everybody should give it a shot, should give it a try, should open to the possibility of tapping in and linking into that aspect of their higher consciousnesses. I keep talking about a bridge between consciousness and higher consciousness. And, it doesn't have to be a bridge. It's whatever you perceive it as. I just use that as my as my explanation to sort of help you understand that there are different levels. It could even be an elevator. It could be climbing a mountain. It could be anything you want it to be. But I would strongly urge all of you to give it a shot, to see what it's like to apply yourself to that level and getting into the perception of the Akashic records. Ask yourself before you go to bed to go to the Akashic records and see what information is there for your soul, for your spirit. It's an amazing experience, and it brings through phenomenal information. Here, I love this quote. They are like the DNA of the universe. They contain a collection of everything that has occurred in the past, and they hold a complete set of information regarding the possibilities of the future. They don't hold the future. They only hold the past and the present. Every individual soul has its own unique Akashic record. And then there are the souls of groups, the group souls, events, organizations, and locations also have their own, so that there are records for records for records for records. And we all have access to it. It's I love this. It's by divine birthright we have the ability to access our own personal Akashic records, as the records of every group which we are a part of, as well as other people's. So the Akashic records are it's not a secret. I don't understand why people think that you can't see other people's Akashic records, because what you're doing is looking into at their soul. You're not looking into who they went out to dinner with last week. You're looking about a soul's evolution, and when you're talking about a soul, it's not private. It's not, because we're all one. We're all connected. We're all different aspects of the same thing. So that it's not, I have mine and you have yours, and we can't share. It's just that our spirits are on different journeys, and if you can't share information, there's something really wrong here. It says people access the Akashic records often through intuition, prayer, meditation, and flashes of insight. And many of us experience these glimpses of the Akashic records on a daily basis. And for many people, intentionally opening ourselves to our intuition and inner guidance provides a powerful opening to the information in the Akashic records. In other words, we have to work on ourselves. We have to open ourselves to the potential that we carry inside. And by doing that, we open ourselves to the magic, the gifts, the talents, and the wisdom that are carried inside of us. In addition to opening the records ourselves, we can find great clarity through, kind of putting ourselves through our own private evaluation process. Because understanding where we've been, where our spirit has been, helps us to understand where our spirit is taking us. And our spirit is definitely driving. We're along for the ride, and it's an exciting ride. But you have to understand that we actually, before we incarnated, we asked for experiences to be sent to us in order for us to learn, to grow, to expand our awareness. And so it's really an amazing process, and it's an exciting one. It's not meant to be a secret, but it's there for us when we're ready to understand the immensity of the journey that we're on. I haven't tapped into mine consciously. I do tap into mine unconsciously. I open to it in my dreams. I ask for information to be channeled through, to be put at my disposal, to allow me to be better than, to be all that I can be. It's like a Marine. I'm a spiritual Marine. I constantly ask that my higher consciousness help me to be all that I can be. And to share and to share all that I have, and so opportunities like this exist, and it's a very exciting thing. But use your dream state to help to sort of program yourself for what it is you're going to be drawing into your reality, because absolutely that's exactly what happens. Let's see, ancient peoples, as I said before, utilized people who could tap into the Akasha for information, for wisdom, for direction. The Himalayas, the Indians of the Himalayas, often did that, and the Tibetans absolutely utilize it. Nostradamus claimed that he had access to the Akasha. He did it through scrying, and he said using methods derived from Greek oracles, Christian and Sufi mysticism, and the Kabbalah. He scryed, and SKRYED, I believe, not cried, but scryed, and he utilized the information for writing his quatrains. He was not a man that spoke in quatrains, but he took the information that was given him and he created quatrains, and it was through channeling. There were other individuals who say that they have accessed them. Ledbetter was one, Alice Bailey's another, and I mentioned Manly P. Hall. I think most of us have from time to time accessed those records, but we don't actually realize that that's where the inspiration, the insight comes from. And so, we kind of take it and think, oh, that was a flash of inspiration, and we move on. It was higher consciousness getting through and giving us, tidbits that we can use, and tools that we can use to expand our own awareness. It's inspiration has to come from somewhere, and it comes from our higher consciousness that has access to everything. And I think those flashes of inspiration that send us on different pathways and open us to different aspects of our own destiny pathway are times when it just gets sick and tired of us fumbling around, and it just sends us a shot in the arm, and it's like, oh wow, I never thought of that before. Wonder where that came from. And you know where it came from. It's just a matter you don't want to give it, credit, I guess. But again, if you really want to get confused, look into the Buddhist and the Hindu aspects of the Akashic records, because they are confusing as heck. And again, other people's definitions as to how you get to them. Some people choose to make them very, very difficult, and some people choose to just say, I just go into them. It's not a big deal. I know that there have been lots of times when I've worked with other mediums or empaths, and they'll ask me, what is my process, and I kind of just look at them because I don't have one. I just go there. And they go through, prayer, and they go through ritual, and they go through candles, and they go through chanting, and it's like, holy mackerel, I'd fall asleep before I got to a place of, using whatever there was there. But everybody has their own method, and whatever works for you, staring into a candle, watching an ice cube melt, there are tons and tons and tons of divinatory tools, and I think that one of our circles is going to be on the variety of divinatory tools that are out there, but they're personal development tools. They aren't meant, and I want to really stress this. I am not in any way, shape, or form trying to make any of you readers or mediums. But I do think it appropriate to put out there, tools that people have used for their own personal growth and for their own finding information that comes from their higher consciousnesses. I mean, from pendulums to tarot cards, from clouds to, how the leaves are falling. All of them are ways of us finding and getting information from our own higher consciousnesses. And they all work, and they all work beautifully. It's just that they are meant to be tools, and they aren't meant to be crutches. They're meant to be ways of understanding the wisdom that we carry within. They're just a tool. You don't need them. I don't always use my cards when I do readings on people. As a matter of fact, I don't think I've used them in weeks and weeks and weeks. But they were a tool, and they work good. And if you're doing quickies and stuff like that, it's easier to throw them out. But we have to understand that all of these things are ways of getting to our higher consciousnesses. They aren't, and they're ways of us getting information and wisdom about our own evolution and development, not necessarily on ways of tapping into and becoming a reader. Last thing in the world I want to do with any of you is make you a reader. If you are a reader, I want to make you a better reader. But that's not the purpose of any of this stuff that we're doing. The purpose of this is to give you a better handle on how to live your life more spiritually and get the best and the most you can out of every experience that comes into your frame of reference. And I love this quote here. The Hall of Records is a frequency in the ether, if it exists at all, being nothing more than an awakening tool for humanity. It is the place of truth where one goes to find the answers about the nature of reality and their role in it, within and without. No one will find a physical Hall of Records. The truth exists within our souls, our DNA, and the initial 8 cells found at the base of our spine that never change, but wait to activate when the time is right. It guides the quests we take to unravel that which was hidden at the beginning of this program of time. And we sense we will soon be discovered, that we sense will soon be discovered. Reality has become about discovery and recovery on all levels of awareness as we evolve in the alchemy of time and consciousness. That's what it is. So, I do see we have Queen here. I'm going to pull her on. Hi, Queen. How are you doing today?
I'm all right. How are you doing?
Doing well. Would love to hear what you think about the Akashic Records.
Well, I know there are. As much of what you said, I agree with. And I know that we can access them by going into ourselves. It's a gift from our source, our mother, the creatress, the beginning, who is so powerful that in these bodies it's hard for us to fathom it. We, well, you mentioned people like Steiner and Casey and Buckler, Madam, however you say her name.
Blavatsky.
And these people have left an imprint, a map for us to follow if we choose to access these other dimensions, these other realms, these other aspects of ourselves. And it all goes back to us being one and being connected to the source. And why would the source not grant us access to who we are? Why would that be a something that would be restricted? Our thoughts are very much important. You spoke of knowing and believing, and those things to me are real crucial in achieving anything that we aspire to achieve. But you first must have the desire and then take forth the action. And for some, it is as simple as you said, just like yourself, you can just, poof, and there you are. Like Dorothy, click your heels 3 times, and you're there. And for others, the ritual is important because that's just the way they operate. But I would like, as I was listening, I was hoping that at some point, if not now, that you or someone could take us on a guided meditation into the Akashic records, into a visualization, and for each of us to come back with information about ourselves. As a collective, we would have that, as a conscious collective aspiring to do this, we would have that additional fuel and energy to make it that much more powerful, to grant us easier access, even though it is for us to go into ourselves to gather this again through that collective consciousness. We can, we are just that much more powerful, and to see what kind of experience that would be for each of us. And I know that you set up a blog. I don't know if anyone's accessed it. I remember Marie asking for it, Sister Marie asking for it. But to have that to be a place, perhaps that, because everyone would not have an opportunity to be able to speak on the phone or even in the chat room about it, but to store that information and to, in addition to having it for ourselves, that it could be a place where others who may not believe or who do believe and know, to see the other possibilities of things that could be accessed, opposed to just say, well, throughout your whole life you have been a teacher, or throughout your whole life you have been a female, or throughout your whole life you have had great singing abilities, to see other aspects to the soul expression. And that's my contribution for the moment.
I think that's a perfectly wonderful idea. I had never thought that. Now, see, for years and years, well, for 17 years, I did guided meditations in my house every week, and never occurred to me that would be something that there would be any interest in. But it certainly is something definitely something worth thinking about, and it's a great idea. I was talking to Deb earlier and saying, how can I get them to talk? And I guess perhaps doing a guided meditation at the beginning of the circle, not every time, but a guided meditation at the beginning of the circle to sort of blend the energy, and certainly with the Akashic records, and actually next time we're going to be talking about past lives, and quite possibly doing a meditation where you're guided into past lives to get information about this life, and then hopefully once it's over, people would share their experience.
I think every time would be a good thing. If people can get there at that time, or in the middle when you have more. Everyone can't get to a phone, number one, to speak. Some people can only, for various reasons, they can't get to a telephone. For me, that's an easy way for me to connect. And by me having that privilege, it's opened up a lot of possibilities for me that other people haven't tapped into. So with that said, and even beyond that, you spoke about dreams, and I'm a great dreamer. My dreams are just awesome. But also to have us meet in the dream time to discuss these things. I'm remembering way back in the day when I was first reawakened to the psychic realms. I was a part of a psychic center, and I used to read tea leaves, so on and so forth. And it was a class. A woman had come from California, and it was a class on the higher self. And she took to me very, 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 she really liked me, and we had a good relationship. But I had a friend, which I'm still friends with, who is a very masterful oracle and prophetess. She's one of the best I've ever come in contact with, and she was. I was sleeping. The teacher was meditating, and my dear beloved sister friend was on some kind of drugs, so she was high. But we all met. We all met at the same spot. This was not a plan. This was not a plan, and the only reason it came out was because I mentioned to her, because she did not get along with my friend, my sister friend, who, the teacher, I mentioned to her that I had seen her in the dream, and we were all in class, and it came out that we had all been there together. We had all been there, and the circumstances, because I asked her to help my friend. My friend was having some kind of trouble, and she, and I had asked the teacher to help her. But I'm saying all that to say that was such a marvelous experience. and those who come forth in this circle, in this energy, have the capacity to do something like that. We could have a place in the spirits, in the other realm, where the Akashic records are housed, to meet, because getting them to speak, they may not be, and everyone isn't a speaker. Everyone isn't a writer. But everyone here has a tendency toward the mystical, the occult, the metaphysical, and might be intrigued by that kind of experience. I know, again, that would, I'd love it. I definitely would love it. And even if we don't have a, we won't do it on Tuesday or it's at 8 p.m. or whatever, that we set an intention to do it. And then as we come back with the information, because everyone's time is different too. Time is, that's subjective, and I'm bringing in Tahuti. That's very, subjective. What is time? But those kind of things, because trying to gather people together, plus you're dealing with free spirits.
Oh, yeah.
Dealing with free spirits here. I made a concerted effort to be here today. One, because I said I was yesterday, and I meant to be here last night, but I fell asleep. There was something else that came before this, and I fell asleep, and it's just the way it is. But so that you don't become weary, my word, that we love you, we want to be, and I'm speaking for the collective. I'm going to say I'm channeling this. Anyway, but we want to be a part of it, but to grant us and not that it's not granted anyway, other ways of tapping into it, and you go on with what you're doing it in the way that works for you, but recognize you're dealing with some unusual beings who are, we move in different ways and different energy, and you're like the soil, the seed planter, and we can go and we can access it just like the archives, so to speak, but the archives in the spiritual realm, because I've done shows, I haven't listened to my own archives, let alone somebody else's, archives. And I mean, that's just the way it is. I prefer to be, in real time. So I would love the meditation, the visualization, the affirmations,
Well, I tell you what. I mean, I think that's a fabulous idea, because certainly when it's a guided meditation, you take the energy of everyone there and you mold it together, and everyone has access to draw upon it. So it's a more powerful experience than if you were doing a meditation on your own. So I think it's a great suggestion. We're going to do past lives next week, and I think that I'll do an hour, 45 minutes of talking about them, and then I'll do 15 to 20 minutes of meditation, and hopefully people will have something to share. That's a very amazing.
When you might want to insert that so that I could try to be available. I mean, I know you got to go with the flow. And in terms of the past life, that's going into the Akashic records. Yes, so I dare say that should be interwoven into the meditation of the past lives, because you would travel into the Akashic records.
To be perfectly honest with you, when I do a lead meditation, I have an intent as to where it's going, but how it goes is totally up to whatever comes out of my mouth.
Of course.
I can intend to get you there. I just don't know where the higher consciousness takes us. But I would assume that it will do exactly what's appropriate for that moment in time.
Oh,
but
no doubt.
But
no doubt. That's what it will be. And well, now that's a nugget, for us to have to tap into, and even maybe go to the archives, or for sure, from my perspective, because I know I have writing to do. I'm restructuring the way I've done things, and I am restructuring and refocusing my energy. But I do know that I have the capacity within myself, and we all do, to access what you put out there and to bring it back, and go fetch and bring it back. And if not directly after that, the meditation, say I couldn't be there, but one day I get a vibe. That's what they did. Let me share that. Let me tell Barbara that I got the message, I got the energy. So, I mean, that's just the way I move, and you're going to find that others move in a different. There may be similarities. I would assume there are, but they move in different ways, because you've got remote viewers, you've got empaths who are different. You've got so many different type of energies that you're dealing with. To even, it's a different kind of and I'm going to say classroom, my word. It's a different kind of classroom for sure. Experience to attempt to find that, other than it being source, to attempt to find that thread to, and I see us, we're connecting to unify us in a way that will be to the highest good of all of us. And when doing the circle, especially, I try to always do things that are new and different. I try not to repeat myself, and because I did meditations for so long, I just figured nobody was interested in meditation anymore. But you're absolutely right. It's a perfect tool to use to help people see things, and especially for people who are not meditators and who are not used to this kind of a practice, to scoop them up with the energy of everybody else and take them someplace so they can experience something is an amazingly wonderful idea, and we will certainly give it a shot. And I would like to say I'm very good at that, and Rose Illumination is very good at meditation, visualization, and you may find others amongst your collective who are good at doing that. I would offer to do it today, except that when you picked up the phone, I was about to lay down, so I'm amazed I came. what I did come forward with. So I'm not going to do that, but you may call on me in the future, and I would dare say, Anne, Illumination would be definitely one who would do that, and I know there probably are others who also would have their own way of doing it. And even in terms of you were talking about different tools to use like I'm saying, magical practices, different ways of getting there, and there's all kind of roads that lead to heaven.
They all go to the same place. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, that's definitely a good idea, and I will certainly, I've done it for a long time, so I will, we'll incorporate it into next week's circle, and both Thursday and Sunday and Friday, and see where it takes us, and it may easily be something that we add on a regular basis. Let's just see where it goes.
Well, I will keep my first eye open and my spirit awake to what is happening.
Yeah, keep at least one of the three open.
Oh, yes. Well, the most important one is that I call it the first eye, the one in the middle of the forehead or close between the eyes. I call it the first eye because that's the all-seeing eye. That's the one that grants you the greatest vision, in my humble opinion. I
think you're absolutely right. And I thank you for the suggestion. I am very open to suggestions, and certainly anybody else who has suggestions. And by the way, since there are more people here in the chat room now, just wanted to point out that on my website there is a page for the Spiritual Development Circle, and on that page are all of the materials that I've sent out so far. So if you ever have trouble opening the material I send you, you can go to my website, and all of the material is right there for you. So, for some reason people are having trouble downloading me, but it's all out there, so you can check it out there. Queen, thank you so much. I really appreciate your suggestions and your time.
Oh, my pleasure. You're quite welcome.
Take care now. Bye-bye. Okay, I'm going to drag Deb on here. Hi, Deb.
Hello.
That was a great suggestion. I think we will play with it. See what we can.
Great idea.
Well, for so long I did it for so much that my feeling was that everybody's sick and tired of meditation. Yet it is an amazingly wonderful tool to utilize, and I guess because I did it so much for so long, I thought it was worn out, but this is a whole new group of people, so...
I was going to say, you got a whole new crop to play with now, yeah.
Fresh blood, flesh of fresh blood.
So, well, no, a new crop so we can learn and grow. You let the other crew, bunch that you worked with before grow. Now it's time to let us grow.
Yeah, it was it was an experience. It really was. Sometimes there were 70 people in the house. It got a little out of hand, but I think that the Akashic Records is I'd rather start with past lives because as Queen pointed out, they are a part of the Akashic Records, but they're a little easier to deal with rather than the purpose of the soul and the journey through time and all of that stuff. But I have beaten this stuff to death again. So I think we're going to close up the show. And